I knew something was off the moment my name was called, and the clapping barely lasted 2 seconds. No cheers. No camera flashes. Just a polite little golf clap, like they were being forced to acknowledge me. Then, 10 minutes later, when Alfonso's name came up, people stood up. My mom cried. My dad whistled so loud the whole auditorium turned. And right there, in the middle of all that fake pride and real applause, I realized something. What do you do when the people who raised you never really saw you? Not because you didn't do enough, but because you didn't shine the way they wanted you to? That's what this story is. Not a tantrum. Not a pity party. This is what happens when the quiet kid finally gets to speak, without raising their voice. If you've ever felt overlooked, ignored, or treated like the background character in your own family, stay with me. This one's for us. It was June. Hot, heavy air. The kind of day where your shirt sticks to your back, and every breath feels thick. My high school graduation. A moment that should have felt like something. But for me, it just felt quiet. Everyone wore the same robe, same cap, same smile stretched too wide. We sat in rows, alphabetically, like that meant something. Like where you sat that day could fix 4 years of being invisible. They called names, handed out fake diplomas wrapped in red ribbon. Parents cheered like it was the Oscars. I looked for my mom in the crowd, Tammy Estrada. She wore her signature big hat and sunglasses like she was somebody. My dad, Philip Story, sat next to her, arms crossed, smiling for Alfonso, who hadn't even walked yet. And then, they called me. Alfred Sawyer. I stood up, walked across that stage the way they told us to, shoulders back, head high. I even smiled a little, hoping for something. But the claps were short. Soft. No camera flashes. Not even a "that's my boy" from the back row. Just stillness. And let me tell you, there's nothing louder than the silence of your own parents not caring. I took my seat. Eyes straight ahead. Palms sweaty. Tried to play it cool. Tried to pretend it didn't sting. But I felt it. Right in my chest. That slow, sinking ache that says, you're on your own. Then, like clockwork, the name everyone had been waiting for, Alfonso Frost. The gym exploded. Cheers, whistles, whoops from the back row. Even Principal Jeremy Bray stood to shake his hand like he was the mayor of the damn town. My mom stood up sobbing like she was watching her son win the Nobel Prize. My dad gave him a bear hug right there in front of everybody. And me? I sat there. Still. Watching a movie I wasn't part of. After the ceremony, there were balloons and laughter. Families gathered around the golden child. Alfonso was surrounded, his friends, his coach, some girl named Maribel Donahue with glitter all over her eyelids. I stood off to the side, waiting. Not for attention. Just for acknowledgement. Just a "hey, you did it too." Instead, my dad pulled out car keys from his jacket, dangling them like they were some kind of medal. "We got you something, champ," he said. And just like that, he walked Alfonso over to a shiny black car, brand new, still smelling like the showroom. A big red bow sat on top. The crowd screamed. My mom cried louder. Even Victor Delgado, who used to stuff me into lockers, shouted, "Dude, no way." I just stood there. No camera. No bow. No key. My mom glanced my way, briefly, then turned right back to Alfonso like I was a stranger. Later that evening, she handed me a card. Inside? $20. A pre-signed message, "We're proud of you too." Like I was an afterthought. That night, I walked home. Alone. Not because I had to, but because I needed to feel every step. Every ache. Every second of it. Because sometimes, pain is the only thing that makes you feel real. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I didn't slam any doors. I just made a promise. One day, I'd come back. Not to prove them wrong, but to show them who I really was, without needing their permission. Stick around. Because the next time I showed up, I didn't walk. I arrived. With a driver. And I didn't need applause. I brought my own silence, the kind you earn. Have you ever stood in the crowd, watching everyone cheer for someone else while you stayed invisible? Tell me your moment. The one that made you want to disappear, or fight harder. Drop it in the comments. I read them all. And if this story feels like it could have been yours, like, subscribe. Stick with me. There's more to come. Because kids like us? We don't fade. We just arrive later, with the engine running. You ever look back at your childhood and realize the signs were always there? That the favoritism wasn't subtle. It was loud. Just wrapped in smiles and birthday cakes with someone else's name on it. When I was younger, I didn't know what favoritism looked like. I just thought love came in different sizes. Some got the full plate. Others got the scraps. And I guess I got used to scraping by with the crumbs. My brother, Alfonso, was the one with the glow. You know the type. The golden boy. Tall, charming, always knew what to say. People gravitated toward him like he was born with a spotlight stitched to his back. And maybe he was. Me? I was the quiet one. Not shy. Just quieter. I asked for less. I didn't throw tantrums. Didn't talk back. I did what I was supposed to. I did it well. But when you grow up in a house that rewards noise and flash over effort, silence starts to feel like failure. I remember being 6, running into the kitchen with a paper in my hand. I'd drawn a spaceship with crayons, blues, reds, and this weird orange I loved. I thought it was the best thing I'd ever made. My mom was cutting up vegetables, on the phone with someone, her eyes darting to the living room where Alfonso was showing off his new soccer cleats. I held it up and said, "Look what I made." She glanced at it, smiled quickly, and said, "That's nice, sweetie. Go show your brother." He didn't care. And I stopped drawing after that. There were always these little moments. Like that one time in 4th grade when I won the regional spelling bee. I came home with a medal around my neck, heart pounding like I'd just discovered fire. I walked into the house expecting something. A hug. A high five. A proud smile. My dad didn't even look up from the newspaper. He asked me if I fed the dog. The next week, Alfonso tripped over his own feet during a JV scrimmage and my mom brought cupcakes to the whole team. The same mom who told me she was too tired to come to my award ceremony. It wasn't just about who they praised. It was about who they forgot. I was the kid who held the camera, not the one they posed in front of it. I was the one who stayed up helping Alfonso write his book report the night before it was due, while he texted Maribel Donahue under the table. He got a B+. He got praised. I got nothing. At school, it was more of the same. Alfonso was the guy everyone knew. He had this laugh that made teachers forgive anything. I had straight A's and no one remembered my name. Even when I was nominated for a leadership award in 11th grade, the counselor mispronounced it and handed me the wrong certificate. One time, I overheard my Aunt Tammy tell my mom, "Alfred's smart, but he's just not memorable." It stuck. Not like a wound. More like a quiet weight that settled into my chest and stayed there. When Alfonso got his braces off, the whole family went out to dinner. When I got accepted into the state math competition, they sent me a thumbs up emoji in the family group chat. Not even a good job. Just thumbs up. There were birthdays where they forgot the cake. One year, they remembered, but it had the wrong name. "Happy birthday, Alfie." No one ever called me that. That was his nickname. It sounds small, I know. But when you stack up 1,000 tiny cuts, they bleed the same as one deep one. You learn not to ask. You learn not to expect. You learn how to disappear while still being in the room. The night of Alfonso's prom, I helped him pick out his suit. I ironed his shirt, shined his shoes, made sure he didn't forget the corsage. He told me I was the best brother anyone could ask for. Then he walked downstairs, took a dozen pictures with our parents in front of the fireplace, and didn't ask me to be in a single one. And I didn't say a word. I just stood there, off to the side, smiling like it didn't gut me to be invisible in my own house. After a while, the silence becomes familiar. You stop expecting the applause. You start measuring your worth in moments that no one else claps for. And eventually, you stop trying to be seen by people who only look in one direction. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. Back then, I just thought if I worked harder, if I kept showing up, kept getting good grades, kept doing the right thing, someone would notice. But they didn't. They never did. And somewhere deep down, I think a part of me gave up on being seen. So I started building something no one could ignore. Quietly. Piece by piece. The beginning of a life that would one day speak for itself, so loud, so undeniable, that even they wouldn't be able to look away. High school didn't make it easier. If anything, it just turned the volume down on what was already quiet. I blended in, faded out, showed up, and left, all without leaving a mark. I walked the hallways like wallpaper, seen but not looked at. Teachers remembered me as Alfonso's brother, and students asked if I could help them with homework, not because they wanted to talk to me, but because they knew I'd say yes. I sat alone at lunch by choice. Not because I hated people, but because trying to be included felt worse than eating in silence. Every time I opened my mouth to join a conversation, it felt like I was interrupting something that was never meant for me. So I stopped trying. I just listened. Took mental notes. Memorized everyone's patterns. And I started realizing something strange. People who never noticed you will still use you, as long as you don't ask for anything back. That's how I became the go-to guy for everything no one wanted to do. Group projects? I carried them. Club events? I made the posters. Teachers gave me extra responsibilities because I was reliable. What they really meant was, I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't ask for help. I wouldn't cause trouble. Even when I got voted most dependable in junior year, the yearbook staff spelled my name wrong. Alfred Sawyer. No W. Just a page filler in someone else's story. I remember walking home from school one day. It was freezing, snow biting at my cheeks, my backpack soaked. Alfonso drove by in Mom's SUV, windows up, music blasting, two of his friends in the back seat laughing about something. He didn't even slow down. I got home 10 minutes later, dripping wet, and saw him sitting on the couch with a sandwich. No one asked why I was soaked. No one noticed I'd walked 3 miles in a snowstorm. That was the day I stopped waiting. Waiting for someone to see me. Waiting for someone to care. Waiting for my name to mean something in that house. Instead, I got a job. 15 years old, sweeping floors at Victor Delgado's hardware store. It was dusty, the hours were long, and the pay was barely enough to cover snacks. But it was mine. Every shift was a small declaration, I exist. I show up. I earn. Victor barely spoke, but I liked that. He gave me tasks, and I did them. No fake praise, no shallow questions. Just silence that felt honest. I started reading finance books on my breaks. Ones people left behind in the store's donation bin. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The Millionaire Next Door. Anything I could get my hands on. I didn't understand all of it, but something clicked. The idea that money wasn't just about spending, it was about freedom. Options. Proof. So I kept working. Saved every dollar. No new shoes. No movie nights. I'd pretend to be sick when Alfonso asked if I wanted to go out, not that he asked often. I just stayed in my room, made spreadsheets, practiced pitches, started looking up local competitions, business plan challenges, scholarship deadlines. Anything that would get me closer to the version of me they couldn't ignore. By the time I turned 17, I'd saved close to $3,000. No one knew. Not my mom. Not my dad. They were too busy watching Alfonso play his senior year of soccer. He made it to state. Scored 1 goal. Got a full-page feature in the local paper. I got a mention in the school newsletter for winning the Regional Entrepreneurship Challenge. My name was misspelled again. They framed his article. They threw my certificate in the junk drawer. But I stopped caring. Not because it didn't hurt, it still did, but because I was done trying to make them clap for me. I wasn't performing for them anymore. I just wanted out. Senior year rolled around, and every kid started talking about college. Alfonso bragged about wanting to go to the University of Miami. My parents were all in. We'll figure it out, my dad kept saying. Whatever it takes. I mentioned a small out-of-state program I was looking at, a full scholarship if I got in. My mom looked up from her coffee and said, "Wouldn't it be better to stay close to home? Help around here?" Help with what, exactly? Cooking meals I didn't eat with them? Fixing leaks in a house that never had space for me? I didn't answer. I just nodded. Like always. The day of college decisions, Alfonso got into his dream school. They opened the letter in the kitchen while I sat at the far end of the table. My dad lifted him in the air like he'd just been drafted. My mom cried again. She always had tears for him. And me? I quietly checked my email upstairs. Full ride. Accepted. Out of state. Away. Far enough that they couldn't ask me to stay behind. I didn't tell them right away. I wanted to keep it for myself for a bit. Let it sit in my chest like a secret made of gold. Something that was mine, fully, finally, completely. And when I did tell them, I remember the way my mom blinked. "Oh, wow," she said. "That's great, honey." Then she turned back to Alfonso and asked what color bedding he wanted for his dorm room. I stood there for a second, watching her stir cream into her coffee. And I thought, this is the last time I ever ask them to see me. From that day on, I started planning for the life I wanted, not the one they handed me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Done with trying to be enough. Done with chasing their pride. Done with being the dependable one. I didn't need to be seen by them. Because one day, they'd hear my name loud and clear, whether they meant to or not. The morning of graduation felt like something out of a slow movie. The sky was clear, too blue, too still, like even the weather didn't want to interrupt what was about to happen. I woke up early. Not out of excitement, but habit. I ironed my own gown, made sure the crease was straight, laid my tie flat across the dresser like someone might actually notice. No one knocked on my door. No "good morning, graduate." Just silence. Downstairs, I heard the blender going. Laughter. Plates clinking. My parents were making a big breakfast for Alfonso. They saved him the biggest slice of French toast. Told him to eat up, he'd need energy for the cameras. When I walked into the kitchen, they were all huddled around the table, going over the plan. What time to leave? Where to park? Who'd hold the banner they made for Alfonso? I said, "Hey." No one looked up. Alfonso was showing them the speech he might give, if he got called up for anything. My mom glanced at me, almost like I was furniture. "Oh, Alfred. You want toast?" I said no and went back upstairs. I sat on the edge of my bed in silence, straightening my tassel. And I told myself, this is the last time. I rode with them to the school. Sat in the back seat while Alfonso controlled the playlist. He turned around and said, "You excited?" I nodded. Didn't say a word. Wasn't in the mood to pretend. The gym was packed when we arrived, parents, teachers, cousins, neighbors all clinging to folding chairs and programs. My name was printed wrong on the back page. Again. Alfred Sayer. I didn't even correct it. Just folded the paper in half and held it in my lap. When we lined up backstage, Alfonso was talking to Victor Delgado, who was handing out water bottles to the athletes. Alfonso dapped him up like they were old teammates. Victor nodded at me, then turned away. Even in this moment, I was invisible. The ceremony began, one by one, names being called, faces beaming, cameras flashing. I watched Alfonso bask in it all. He was glowing, playing to the crowd like he was born for it. And then, they called my name. Alfred Sawyer. I stood. Walked across the stage. Back straight. Head high. A few scattered claps. Someone coughed. The mic squeaked. No one cheered. No banner in the crowd. No, that's my son. Just quiet. When I turned to receive the handshake from Principal Bray, he looked past me and gave a nod to someone else. My moment was 30 seconds long. Then gone. I walked back to my seat. Sat down. Hands in my lap. Face still. Heart bleeding. 10 names later, they called Alfonso. And the gym exploded. Screams. Whistles. My mom practically jumped out of her seat. My dad howled his name like a coach on the sidelines. Someone behind me stood up with a giant cardboard sign that said, "Go Frost." Even the principal hugged him. Gave him the mic. Let him speak. Alfonso said something about hard work and dreams and community. Everyone clapped like he was sending them into battle. I stared at the floor, trying to hold my expression. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. The kind of pain that keeps you grounded. The kind that reminds you, you're still here, even if no one else sees it. After the ceremony, they handed us little folders, no real diplomas inside, just placeholders for the mail. Outside, on the lawn, families gathered for pictures. Flash after flash after flash. My mom was snapping photos of Alfonso with every person he'd ever met. Friends. Coaches. The girl he used to date. When I stepped closer, she said, "Alfred, can you take one for us?" I took the phone. I took the picture. No one asked for one with me. Just when I thought that was the last cut. My dad pulled out his keys. He smiled at Alfonso and said, "Let's give you your real graduation present." They walked across the parking lot with a group trailing behind them. My heart started pounding. I followed at a distance. Something in me already knew. There it was. Shiny. Jet black. A brand new Nissan sedan with a red bow on the hood. People gasped. Someone cheered. A few even clapped like it was a game show prize. My mom grabbed Alfonso's arm and squealed, "Surprise!" He laughed. Pretended to be shocked. He wasn't. He knew. Everyone knew. Except me. I stood there, 20 feet away, my folder still in hand. Wearing the same gown. The same smile I had forced onto my face. But now, my hands were shaking. A few people glanced at me. A couple of them nodded politely. No one said, "You too." No one pulled me aside and said, "We didn't forget you." My mom walked over eventually. Slipped a card into my hand. Inside was a $20 bill. The message read, "We're proud of you too. Love, Mom and Dad. 2. That one word hit harder than anything else that day. I walked home. Didn't ask for a ride. Didn't look back. Didn't want them to see my face. As I walked down that road in my gown, cars honking, people celebrating all around me, I made a decision. Right then, right there, in the quiet between footsteps, I swore I would never be invisible again. Not by yelling. Not by begging. Not by playing their game. I would build something bigger. Stronger. Louder than their silence. And the next time they saw me, I wouldn't be walking. I'd be arriving. After graduation, the house felt emptier than usual. Not because people were gone, they were all still there, but because I stopped trying to fill the space with conversation. Alfonso had his car now. He came and went like he owned the streets, tires squealing every time he left the driveway. My parents beamed at him like he was their walking legacy. I barely existed in those weeks before college. My name wasn't mentioned unless someone needed a favor, carry a box, mow the lawn, run to the store. And even then, it was a mumble, a passing thought. So I packed in silence. One box at a time. My clothes. My books. My folder with the acceptance letter. No one helped. No one asked what I needed. And I didn't tell them when I was leaving. I just circled the date on the kitchen calendar. August 17th. And waited. The night before I left, Alfonso threw a party in the backyard. Music. Friends. Laughter. All for his big send-off, even though he wasn't leaving for another 2 weeks. I wasn't invited. I watched through the upstairs window as my parents handed out drinks and waved sparklers like it was New Year's. I zipped my suitcase in the dark, put it by the door, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up at 6. No one else was up. I left a note on the counter, "Thanks for everything. Take care. Alfred." I closed the door behind me and took a cab to the bus station. Not a car. Not a send-off. No banner. Just me, a duffel bag, and the first inhale of freedom I'd felt in years. College wasn't glamorous. I didn't roll in with a trunk full of new clothes or a decorated dorm. I had 2 pairs of shoes, second-hand sheets, and a mind wired to survive. But I was there. On my own terms. And this time, I made sure every second counted. I sat in the front row of every lecture. Took notes like they were currency. Introduced myself to professors by name. I interned for free while everyone else partied. I built spreadsheets in my dorm at midnight, entered business competitions, pitched startup ideas to strangers who didn't even look up from their phones. I lost more contests than I won. But I kept going. I had something most people didn't: fuel. Not rage. Not revenge. Something sharper, the memory of being invisible. That memory kept me moving. By the end of my sophomore year, I'd caught the attention of Professor Jasmine Leon. She taught strategic finance, sharp as glass and just as clear. She pulled me aside after class one day and said, "You don't talk much, Mr. Sawyer. But your work does." Loudly. That sentence stayed with me. She connected me to a summer mentorship under Pablo Henderson and Laura Garcia, partners at a boutique investment firm in the city. I wore my only blazer. Polished my shoes with a toothbrush. Took the bus 3 hours each way and never once complained. I learned everything I could. I asked questions most interns were too afraid to ask. I took notes on what wasn't said in meetings. Watched how power moved in a room, how silence could command just as much attention as a booming voice. By senior year, I was working part-time for the firm, handling portfolios bigger than anything I'd ever imagined. I watched people 3 times my age come to me for advice, nod when I spoke, shake my hand with respect. Not polite respect, the real kind. The kind you can feel in your bones. I made my first $100,000 before I crossed the graduation stage. And this time, when they called my name, the crowd clapped. They clapped long. They clapped loud. My parents weren't there. I hadn't invited them. Alfonso was still back home, living in the same room, the car long gone, working retail and calling it a gap year. He posted inspirational quotes on Instagram and flirted with girls who barely responded. I heard through a cousin that he blamed bad luck for why nothing worked out. But luck had nothing to do with it. Luck didn't carry me through cold nights eating ramen with the heat turned off. Luck didn't write the grant applications or pitch ideas to tired men in suits. Luck didn't stay up learning how credit scores, compound interest, and silent partnerships worked. I did that. Alone. Quietly. Every day. For years. By 24, I had a full-time position at a private equity firm and was investing in underfunded startups with founders who looked like they didn't belong, just like I used to. My apartment was small, but clean. My suits were tailored. My schedule was full. And most days, when I walked into a room, people noticed. People listened. Not because I was loud. But because I didn't need to be. I wasn't trying to impress anyone anymore. I wasn't begging to be seen. I had built something that couldn't be ignored. And I wasn't done yet. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, I still carried that moment, that parking lot, that car, that $20 bill, that word, too. So when I got the invite for my 5-year high school reunion, I RSVP'd yes. Not to show off. Not to brag. But because I knew. This time, I wouldn't be arriving with a gift in hand or a hope in my chest. I'd be arriving with a chauffeur. And when I stepped out of that car, they'd have no choice but to look. The day of the reunion came in slow. Warm air. Late October. Leaves starting to crackle at the edges. That kind of still afternoon where the light lingers a little longer than usual, like it knows something big is about to happen. I didn't dress to be seen. No glitter, no brand logos, no loud flexes. Just a fitted dark suit, polished shoes, and a silver watch with no diamonds. Clean. Quiet. Purposeful. I didn't drive myself. I hired someone. A man named Philip Faulkner, early 50s, ex-military, silent as a locked vault. He pulled the black sedan up to my building's entrance right at 5:45 p.m., stepped out, opened the door for me without a word. That was the point. I wasn't walking in like I used to. This time, I was arriving. The reunion was at our old high school gym, dressed up with string lights and rented white linens to make it look less like the place we were humiliated in and more like some fancy Airbnb venue. They tried. I'll give them that. When we pulled up, the parking lot was already full of Hondas and used Jeeps. Familiar voices drifted through the open doors, laughs, music, names I hadn't heard in years. And then my car door opened. People turned. Noticed. Not just because I had a driver, but because I stepped out slow. Calm. No rush to belong. I didn't smile too hard. Didn't scan the crowd. Just adjusted my cuffs, nodded at Faulkner, and walked in like I already owned the room. Inside, the music paused for a second, like it recognized the change in energy. Then the whispers started. Is that Alfred Sawyer? No way. That can't be him. He looks different. Exactly. The old me would have shrunk under that kind of attention. Would have looked for a corner to hide in, a wall to lean on. But not tonight. I headed straight for the check-in table. Maribel Donahue was working it. Yeah. That Maribel. The one who used to say I was too quiet to be cute when we were 16. She looked up and did a full blink. Oh. Wow. Alfred? I smiled. Evening, Maribel. She stood up, too quickly, brushing imaginary lint from her shirt. You look, like, really good. I know, I said. I picked up my name badge, turned it over once, then put it back down. I think I'll pass on the sticker. She laughed. Nervously. You're not married, are you? Not tonight, I said, and walked past her. Inside the gym, it was a parade of old roles trying to stay relevant. Jeremy Bray, the former principal, stood near the stage with a drink that didn't match the color of soda. He'd gone gray. Fuller in the face. Still had that slick-back hairstyle like he was about to give a TED Talk no one asked for. Victor Delgado was there too, leaned against the wall like he owned it, nodding to every person who walked by. He glanced at me. Paused. Then gave a subtle two-finger salute. That one I returned. He had earned it. And then I saw them. My parents. Tammy Estrada and Philip Story. Standing by the punch table like two well-meaning strangers. Aging, tired, but still somehow unaware of the space they never gave me. They didn't recognize me at first. Not until Alfonso walked in behind me. Yeah. He came. Still trying too hard. Polo shirt one size too small, forced smile, phone in hand like it was the extension of his ego. He walked in expecting the room to bend again, expecting the applause, the attention. And for a moment, he had it. Until someone turned and said, "Did you see Alfred?" Just like that, the attention shifted. Alfonso looked over. Eyes narrowed. Smile faltered. And for the first time in years, I saw it, the realization. He no longer owned the room. I didn't wave. Didn't nod. Just kept moving. People came up one by one. Not out of pity. Not out of politeness. But curiosity. Respect. Laura Garcia was there, somehow roped into catering. She ran a boutique bakery now and nearly dropped a tray when she saw me. Alfred. I had no idea, what are you doing these days? I work in acquisitions, I said. Independent projects. Tech real estate. A little venture capital. She blinked. Like, real venture capital? Like, several million under management. She laughed. Said something like wow, then quickly excused herself to refill the champagne. That was the night. No grand speech. No mic drop. No payback stunt. Just quiet conversations. Side eyes. And long pauses from people who used to talk over me. Near the end, they started gathering folks for a group picture. Someone yelled out, "Alfonso, front row." He moved forward automatically, like it was his default setting. But the photographer hesitated. Actually. Alfred, would you mind coming up? Center? I didn't say yes. I just walked forward and stood in the middle. Not because I wanted the spotlight. But because no one could ignore me now. We took the picture. Flash. Done. As people drifted away, I spotted my parents near the exit. They were watching me. Not confused. Not angry. Just quiet. My mom started to say something. But I just nodded once, politely, and turned to leave. Outside, Faulkner was waiting, door already open. I stepped in. Didn't look back. The door shut with a clean, final click. And for the first time in my life, it didn't feel like leaving. It felt like choosing. Choosing me. No applause. No bow. Just presence. I didn't need them to clap anymore. They were already watching. And this time, they didn't look away. We drove in silence for a while, the city lights casting long streaks across the windows. I leaned back against the leather seat, loosened my tie, and let my breath finally catch up with me. You know that feeling when you're not trying to impress anyone? When you're not waiting for someone to clap, or validate, or approve. That was me. Free. Not just from them, but from the version of me that used to need them. Faulkner glanced at me through the mirror. Where to now, sir? I gave him an address. Not home. Not yet. He pulled onto the freeway, the hum of the engine steady, smooth. I rolled the window down an inch, let the wind brush my face. And as the buildings blurred by, I thought back to that day in the parking lot, the red bow, the cameras, the word too. I wasn't angry anymore. Not even bitter. What I felt now was weightless. We pulled up outside a small community center on the south side. A non-profit I'd anonymously funded 2 years ago. They offered free workshops, financial literacy, resume writing, college prep. They never knew the donor's name. I liked it that way. A few kids were still inside, huddled around plastic tables with laptops and notebooks, a volunteer going over scholarship essays. I watched them for a moment through the window. No one there knew my story. No one had to. Because the point was never revenge. It was visibility. On my terms. After a few minutes, I tapped Faulkner's shoulder. Take me home. He nodded. We pulled into my building's private garage. Sleek concrete. Soft overhead lights. I stepped out, walked toward the elevator, shoes echoing with purpose. Each step felt different now, like they belonged to someone who wasn't chasing anymore. Inside my apartment, the city looked smaller than it used to from the floor-to-ceiling windows. Not because the world had changed, but because I had grown into it. I poured a glass of water. Sat at the edge of the balcony. Took my time. Somewhere across town, I imagined Alfonso telling stories at a bar. Probably still explaining why college wasn't the right fit and how the system just didn't favor him. And my parents, still trying to figure out when exactly they lost me. The truth? They never had me. They only ever had the version of me that kept asking to be noticed. That version? Gone. What they lost was someone who finally learned how to stand without applause. It didn't happen overnight. It happened one invisible day at a time. Every forgotten birthday. Every unspoken compliment. Every moment I stood in the background while they photographed someone else's light. All of that, every wound, became fuel. But now? I didn't need the fire anymore. Because I had built something bigger than revenge. I had built myself. I walked into that reunion like a question they didn't know how to answer. I left like a statement they couldn't forget. And I never raised my voice. Never threw a punch. Never called anyone out. I just arrived. Fully. Quietly. Undeniably. And that was enough. Ever been the one who was overlooked? Ignored. Dismissed. Left out of the photo, out of the plan, out of the story? If so, this one was for you. Because sometimes, you don't need to fight for the seat at their table. You build your own. You hire the driver. And when they finally look up, you're already gone. Like. Share. Subscribe. And if you've got a story like mine, drop it below. Because some of us were forged in silence. And now it's our turn to speak, without saying a word.